that cold start because of some different kind of compulsions. You could go in for shallow threats. And then, of course, capture of territory actually was an important ingredient or a very distinct of what you perceived as victory. Put this in contrast with what happened during Operation Sindoor. Operation Sindoor was totally a non-contact warfare. We never saw each other, or if we saw each other during strikes or post-strikes for a PSDA, we saw each other either through ELINT, EMINT, COMENT, either through electro-optical or SAR imagery. That's how we saw each other, both before the strikes and for PSDA. So like all wars, I think there are a mix of kinetic, now increasingly mix of non-kinetic forces also. But kinetic operations are important in all this land, air and maritime domain. And these we saw were degraded or amplified by non-kinetic domains, whether it was cognitive, info, electronic warfare and cyber operations. They're totally non-linear. Trans-LC firing to striking airfield infrastructure in depth with precision and timing. There was no front, there was no rear. And this particular difference between front and rear had totally vanished. It was a network kind of warfare. So we had our air defense communication network, we had an air defense network and a rudimentary counter-US grid, which we tried to put in place before the operations broke out. And that gave us a fused kind of a picture. So better situational awareness, better transparency, which actually shortened the OODA loop. So classically it was multi-domain operations over land, air, maritime domains, duly supplemented by cyber, space, electromagnetic spectrum and cognitive domain. The implication of all this is that in future we'll have to be prepared for that old and new kind of warfare together. So we have this war, something which the Israelis fought the Iran in some manner for 12 days. It's a new kind of warfare. What the Russians and the Ukrainians are firing, a mix of both. So we have to be prepared for both kinds of warfare. The second evolving challenge from the military perspective is to keep a high degree of operational preparedness 24/7, 365 days. Constant vigil, real-time intelligence and seamless coordination amongst various different branches and agencies have become critical necessity. Again, I'll take you back to an earlier paradigm, say about 10-15 years back. There used to be a concept of warning time which was given to us. So against the northern adversary, there could be a warning time, say, of 6 months. Basically, we could figure out how the diplomatic or the political mood in that particular country is shaping up. Then, of course, they required time to mobilize. Tibet was very far away. And you had that the government will be able to give you, say, they had specified a particular time. And similarly, for a Western adversary, they may be engaged in Operation Sindoor towards the east, they would require to mobilize. So you would have some definite amount of time before a war could break out. And this current paradigms exactly are all gone. This is no longer true because we were engaged in kinetic operations even before we mobilized, and we were still mobilizing. And by the time, in 4 days before we could mobilize, the operations were called off. And even could not called off in the sense because we are still at a pause. So that's how we are. The third evolving challenge in the military domain is to prepare for the entire spectrum of conflict ranging from sub-conventional, conventional to nuclear. And this is for across the entire domain